Good evening to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. I'm Mercedes Schlapp, and yes, look who's back.
I'm back from the big bad New York City, which is so depressing. Don't go there.
Yeah, but you had a lot of good meetings with a lot of great patriots, and they're trying not to flee New York, right?
I think they're trying not to, but New York is pretty depressing. The whiff of marijuana is in the air. There's homeless people all over the place. It really is. It's pretty tawdry. Shutting down America for a year, not a good idea.
Well, it looks like it's going to be shut down for even longer in the rate that we're going, especially when you've got Dr. Fauci changing his message every other day.
We do, but the bad news is 2 tigers have been tested positive for coronavirus. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't.
So my solution is that Dr. Fauci should personally put the masks on the tigers to solve our problem.
Wow. Well, there's been so much going on this week. As you know, American Conservative Union just launched this Center to Protect Voters and Their Voices.
Right.
Matt, you felt this was really important to do immediately, because what have you been seeing in these past few weeks?
Well, I've seen over the course of the last year, but really over the course of the last 4 years, a separation with too many woke corporate CEOs and boards of directors, a separation from the Republican Party and the conservative activists who always push for their policies. You tell me the conservative activist who's not for a lower capital gains tax rate, for instance, and they were all for the tax plan that Paul Ryan and Donald Trump pulled together, which basically benefited big companies and not so much little companies. You know, the conservative activist is always there for this kind of agenda of deregulatory, cut taxes, put good judges on the bench. So I think we're at an inflection point. I think conservatives are tired of doing the bidding of big companies who despise them, and they're their customers.
Yeah, that's right. They're not only their customers, but their employees as well. And many of these employees feel that they cannot even speak up in the corporation. They're being forced to make donations to organizations that they don't even fundamentally agree on. But I got to tell you, of course, Matt Schlapp has a tweet for everything. And this tweet really took off. Actually, there was a part 1 and a part 2, so I thought
there's a part 3, but it's not out yet. It's in my. It's up here.
That's gracious.
It's in the Twitter factory.
Is that what you call it? That's clever. It's like Willy Wonka. Okay, so this is the first part of the tweet. Dear Delta CEO, do you allow 2 people to sit in the same seat on your left-wing airplanes? Do you allow dead people to buy a seat? If someone purchases a ticket online, do you still make them verify who they are? How about we use your rules for our elections? Hashtag hypocrisy. But let's continue, because he's still talking to the Delta CEO here. Dear Delta CEO, continued, is it too unsafe to show up in person and fly? Is it so unsafe that you encourage us to stay home and only do business through the mail? Is it valid to knock, is that Georgia?
Yes.
On H2O
water
when you won't even give us a damn cup of coffee.
They give you a baggie. They give you a baggie with a warm thing of water and some Cheez-Its. You know, it's like, and they're complaining that Georgia doesn't have a full refreshment stand for the voters.
It's absolute hypocrisy, as you mentioned. Matt, I want you to just give us that part 3. What's going to happen here? I mean, what's the future here when it comes to these?
The point is,
Delta.
The point is on these 2 tweets are the following. You can't fly without an ID. Asking for an ID has nothing to do with race. It has to do with security.
Right.
And the fact is that in our voting system, because these corporations and others have pushed for a lack of security on the ballots, you do have dead people voting. Why do you have dead people voting? Because people can use the names of those folks in order to vote. The ballots that continue to get mailed to people who have moved away or who have died continue to get mailed because the Democrats who run these big cities have said, oh no, you have to send these in the mail unsolicited.
That's right.
It was just a little bit of a way to show how hypocritical these CEOs are being. And how about you?
Well,
The topic of the day is the socialists want to not only have a blue coup when it comes to our elections, they want to have a blue coup when it comes to our Supreme Court. At Mercedes Schlapp, who you need to follow on Twitter. America, wake up and vote the authoritarian Democrats out of office before it's too late. I think it's going to happen.
I really hope you're right. I mean, this has to do with the Democrats planning this legislation. They announced it today to expand the Supreme Court from 9 to 14 justices.
That's right.
Is that correct?
And that's so they could get the majority, right? 7 to 6.
Right. And then Nancy Pelosi apparently is trying to push back a little bit, but she agrees with this commission that Joe Biden has put in place. But what's interesting is when you have then Senator Joe Biden, who spoke about court packing back in the 80s. Let's go to that clip.
President Roosevelt clearly had the right to send to the United States Senate and the United States Congress a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct, but it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make, and it put in question for an entire decade the independence of the most significant body, including the Congress, in my view, the most significant body in this country, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. The president had the right to do that. He was totally within his power, and his objective was seen clearly.
The Supreme Court, here you've got it. Joe Biden saying that it's a bonehead idea, yet his own party, these Democrat members, are saying we have to destroy the Supreme Court, fundamentally change that institution. These are the actions that happen in countries like Venezuela, where they add justices from a particular party to politicize the Supreme Court, to politicize our judicial system. Matt, your reaction?
Yeah, and the other thing is, remember when FDR did this back in the 30s, he actually was intimidating the court. It wasn't just about expanding the court with a bunch of, back then I guess they would have called them liberals, but it was about forcing the court politically and leveraging them to stop overturning New Deal programs. Remember, even our Republican picks for the Supreme Court did not get involved in all the wrongdoing on the election. Half of this strategy is to intimidate Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, John Roberts, and the rest to not do what we need to do to uphold the Constitution. And they're not the only, Joe Biden's the only one who was against court packing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was against court packing, and even Stephen Breyer, one of the oldest member of the court. Let's watch this clip.
The rule of law has weathered many threats, but it remains sturdy. I hope and expect that the court will retain its authority, but that authority, like the rule of law, depends on trust. A trust that the court is guided by legal principle, not politics. Structural alteration motivated by the perception of political influence can only feed that latter perception.
That's right. So there's so much news going on, but I think the most important news that's been breaking comes out of the great work of a true American hero, James O'Keefe, who's the CEO and founder of Project Veritas. I think he drives CNN so crazy that I don't think they can even sleep at night, knowing that another shoe is going to drop, another shoe is going to drop. James O'Keefe, thanks for joining us on CPAC Now.
Great to be with you, Matt.
Okay, so this is blockbuster stuff. I think conservatives aren't surprised by how corrupt CNN is, but give us an overview on the latest state of play of what you found out.
Well, this is a three-part series, and it shows this guy, the director, Charlie Chester, saying things that we've always believed to be true, but never been able to get admission out of their own mouth, saying their network's propaganda, say they bait people, they don't put people on the network unless they say what they want them to say that they were increasing the COVID numbers, that death is good for ratings, they want the numbers to be higher, that Jeff Zucker tells the COVID numbers to be higher, and then probably the most damning admission of all, that the network exists to help Biden and to get Trump out of office. They say this explicitly. And again, it doesn't shock you, but it is amazing that they're saying it, and they're saying they cannot say this publicly. They have to hide that this is what their true intent is. Remarkably, the video is trending almost #1 on Twitter, and and Zucker hasn't said anything yet.
Let me go right to this question about them using these corporate resources to play a big role in the presidential campaign. That's essentially illegal. We have a political framework that's been set up over the course of a couple centuries on the proper way that you can use money. If CNN is an enterprise aimed at electing Joe Biden, defeating Donald Trump, that's a big problem for them.
It is. It's a very interesting question. And what really troubles me is that people say, well, who cares? We all know CNN's biased. Well, Google and Twitter and Facebook prefer entities like the New York Times and CNN in their algorithm. So they're news, if you want to call it that. This director doesn't call it news. He calls it propaganda aimed at helping Biden. And by the way, he speaks as someone who is not against this. He's for it, but he's also speaking about how they shouldn't be doing it. It's a really interesting guy because he's participating in something that he himself considers wrong. But the tech companies prefer CNN. CNN's First Amendment right, arguably, to do this stuff. But the fact that the tech companies, which are immune under Section 230 of the Communications and Decency Act, can prefer that content and call it news, that's the real problem. So what I think the solution is in the courts is through libel law. I think we should sue CNN for defamation, and that's exactly what I'm going to do myself. I hope others follow suit.
Well, not only are you noted as being a guerrilla journalist, which I just love, but also the fact that you are exposing the realities of what we are seeing in terms of these networks, especially CNN. Has CNN responded, James?
No, they haven't. There's a cone of silence at the network. It appears to be the case that Zucker has ordered no one to say a word. Newsweek has called him, New York Times has called him. A lot of mainstream journalists have called Zucker. They're trying to figure out the status of this employee. Is he fired? Is he still work there? I mean, this guy is saying things that are outrageous. I mean, just saying that the network is deceiving the people and preferring candidates in the news. And I think that they're caught between a rock and a hard place because they know if they fire the guy, it's going to explode the story even bigger. But if they don't fire the guy, they're embracing it. They can't defend what he said. And, we'll see what happens. I think he will lose his job eventually, and they'll try to do it in a quiet way.
They might hide him in the mail room or in the basement like they do with Biden. But let's go to play the first video. I really want our viewers to have a chance to take a look at the great work that you've done. Let's play the video.
I think we got him through this term. We would always show shots of him jogging, him in aviator shades, and like you paint him as a young geriatric. We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. So that's I think that's propaganda. I think what we did, we got Trump out. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of fear, like climate?
Yeah, fear sells. Fear sells. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
And what is it you do?
Technical director. It's one step down from director. It's going to be our focus. Our focus was to get Trump out of office. Without saying it, that's what it was. Trump his hand was shaking or whatever, that he was losing it. He's unfit. We were creating a story there. So that's I think that's propaganda.
So I'm standing here at 30 Hudson Yards. Warner Media is in right there. That's CNN's corporate headquarters. We're in New York City. Jim Sciutto just walked out. Funny enough, I asked him about the videos we have just obtained of a CNN director, Charlie Chester, on tape for years. We've heard that CNN is the most trusted name in news, but a CNN director is on tape telling us that they're propaganda, helping a certain political candidate, employees admitting what we've always known to be true. This time, it's on tape.
I think what we did, we got Trump out. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out. I really don't think so.
So, James, you talk about using the libel laws to sue CNN. What should Donald Trump do?
I would argue the only solution, the only recourse that people have, even public figures, Donald Trump is a public figure, I'm a public figure, is to sue for defamation, Matt. I think we're high time now, and I think there's a fear to do that because it's expensive. It cost us $250,000 to get just to motion to dismiss against the New York Times. We won in New York Supreme Court. I don't know if you saw that 2 or 3 weeks ago. The justice in New York State said it was the New York Times that acted, with malice and misinformation. So Donald Trump should sue. And I know that there's the New York Times versus Sullivan decision. You have to prove what's called actual malice. You have to prove these journalists at CNN knew they were lying. But I think in some cases that we can prove that. I think that they do know that they're lying. Not in all cases, but in some of the cases. And I think we need to start suing and suing and suing. And there is a recourse under the law. You cannot intentionally lie about a public figure under the law. And in the lawsuit against the New York Times, Matt, when we get to the fall, we will be conducting videotaped depositions of the executive editor of the New York Times. I'm going to be suing Anna Cabrera and Brian Stelter because they said that I was taken off Twitter for misinformation, when in fact, Project Veritas was taken off Twitter for a supposed doxing of interviewing people in the street, which has nothing to do with misinformation. So they lied. And unless we sue them, they're going to keep getting away with it, and sue them we must. Well,
the journalist who was, I guess, interviewing or on this date with this technical director, wow, complete superstar, quite frankly, because it's a tough situation, but she remains cool and collected the whole time. I think, it's been amazing the type of work that you're doing, what you're able to uncover, in addition to the fact that he's admitted to that CNN is creating these stories, that they're focused on making sure Joe Biden wins. There's also the fact that this director says that they're trying to help the Black Lives Matter movement by protecting the group's narrative on race. Let's play a small clip on that as well.
I was trying to do some research on like the Asian hate, like the people are getting attacked or whatever. A bunch of black men that have been attacking Asian. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like, we're trying to like help like with the BLM, and like we're gonna like, I mean, it's individuals, it's not a people, But that's not good. The optics of that are not good. These little things like that are enough to set back movements, because the far left will start to latch on and create a story of like criminalizing an entire people, just easier headlines that way, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
So you're saying that the far left would label a whole genre of people? I kind of missed your point.
That like, no, the conservatives. I'm sorry, not the far left. But I've noticed that like you'll get headlines that might lump people together as opposed to focusing on the individual. I mean, that's what Trump ended up doing with like the China virus. And that put so much flame on an entire group of people as opposed to, a few careless individuals.
Right, the actual source, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but is it normal for the media to like, so say there's a white shooter, black shooter, which one are we gonna, like?
Yeah, for the longest while, like the story was like, people were like lapping up that it was like, white guys for like so long. I haven't seen anything about focusing on the color of people's skin that aren't white.
James, shocking that they're literally fomenting racial division in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, I think the shocking thing is that they're admitting to doing it. They're aware. And I can't emphasize to you enough, behind me is my logo, Project Veritas, which is Latin for truth. Project Veritas is truth, and journalism ought to be about getting to the bottom of things, finding out what's true. What this guy's saying the network is doing, and this is a director, he's familiar with the newsroom and the culture. He talks about Zucker calling them and telling them to put the COVID numbers higher. That's not journalism. That's the farthest thing from journalism. And they attack us. They have the gall to say that I'm not a journalist when they don't even let people on the air unless they can say what they want them to say. So
That's
this is
right.
how bad it is. It's just disgusting. It's just gross, actually.
Mercy and I can understand this because we used to appear on CNN together and individually for years and years The phone has gone cold, sweetheart.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and when I was doing these interviews during the campaign, they were so aggressive. They spread lies, and all it is a personal attack on you. It's exactly what you're saying, James. It's like their goal is to destroy you personally because you stand for something that's different than what they believe in. Is there anything else that you saw in all of the footage that you could point to that you were like, this was the most shocking part of all of this?
I think the admission that they're doing this, but they don't want people to know that they were trying to get Trump out of office, that they don't want people to know they're trying to paint Biden. This is his words, paint Biden as a young man with aviator sunglasses, not the geriatric, these are his words, the geriatric that he is. So I think the worst part about this, guys, is that I don't have a problem with CNN being an arm of a political party. That's their right as a company. Anyone's right to advocate for, political positions. But the fact that they position themselves as the most trusted name in news, and the fact that their director knows that they do this, and he knows that they're wrong to do this, but they do it anyway, is evidence of malice under the law. And nothing will change. Everyone says, "Oh, James, what are we going to do about it?" Well, I'm giving you a solution. We must sue them, and I will sue CNN for defamation. I know other people have contacted me and will do so. We'll get past motion to dismiss, and we will conduct videotaped discovery into these people. It's absolutely what we've always known to be true, and I'm proud to say that as a result of this expose, a number of other people from within CNN have reached out to me, of course, privately. And their consciences are just, I think they're disgusted by, and I don't think they can live with themselves working for an organization that behaves this way.
I think if this is corporate media, and President Trump said it over and over again, we're watching all these other corporations who aren't in media get woke. They're weakening this country. And I want them all to be a little bit afraid, James O'Keefe, that you, or someone who works with you, might be right around the corner. I think a little transparency could go a long way to helping the country. God bless you for what you do.
Thanks, guys. Veritas Tips at protonmail.com. That's Veritas Tips. If you're out there, send me a note.
Yeah, and everybody retweet these videos right now. As James said, it was trending #1 on Twitter. We got to keep that going. This is a very important story.